Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. We have some playoff series to discuss and a few other things. The World Championships. We almost had an epic fail between Canada and Austria before Canada. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's the World Championships.
How long would it have taken for people to actually find out about that?
Well,
people in the States, not in Canada.
No. I mean, on Canada, we were getting a blow-by-blow on from people watching it. But in the States, since it didn't involve the U.S., nobody gave a good goddamn. Right. Okay, we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
So let's talk about NFL players off-season being on shows saying stupid stuff. There's a whole list. It's not just Aaron Rodgers. There's the whole...
And not just shows. Commencement addresses, too.
Commencement addresses too. These guys at some point should understand their limits or limitations, and instead of just being, for lack of a term, media whores, maybe reel it in a little bit, knowing that hey, you're representing a team. You have fans that and you don't have to please all the fans. I'm not saying you should do that, but I'm just saying a lot of this right and. When it comes to fans going to your team's games, you know what? Parents have talks about this stuff. People, do you want to buy that jersey? No, I'd rather you not wear that jersey. You can buy this guy's jersey. That stuff is real. That happens every day. So I just think as the NFL gets bigger here, this is the downside of it because guys are becoming more popular than they normally would in other leagues. Mm-hmm. And, when you're a guest on a show, like I don't want to say that there can be possible entrapment, but like as an example, if you're going on to a show of let's say a guy who's been 15 years in the news business, he's going to have a little bit of an agenda, and you should know that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you have to be prepared, and I mean, I was referring to the commencement address and the kicker of the Kansas Chiefs making comments. It's like
not Chiefs, isn't he a Commander guy, or was he a Chiefs? I forget what team.
Well, I don't know if he left. I mean, he was the field goal. He was the field goal kicker for the Chiefs.
No, I think you're right. I think it was Chiefs.
Yeah, Harrison Butker. And
that's true.
And this is the thing. You can believe what you want to believe in. Not everybody's going to agree. It could be something on the one end of the spectrum or the other end of the spectrum. Just be prepared to take crap if it's something that people don't agree with. And, if you don't want to take crap, then don't say the stuff. I mean, that's simply what it is. And, you see players go on these shows and they expect to be thrown softball questions. And in the end, if there's actually an agenda there to sort of get them to say something, and if they don't want to say something, then don't go on the show.
Right.
Now, I'll say this because we touched on it on Monday, and it just got progressively worse. And I just want to say, I don't blame the radio stations or the websites that do this. But my God, the schedules come out and the Bills and the Dolphins are playing on the Amazon game. I mean, I don't give a good.
The Jets are in London, Mike.
Wow. I mean, honestly, of course they're not going to do this because the NFL are whores, and they're going to string this out, and they're placing people on Good Morning America or the CBS morning show so they can drop the little note about, well, we're going to be carrying. I mean, okay, I'm as big a football fan as anybody. I will be interested in the Bills' schedule when they release the whole thing. This thing where they're like, well, there's a rumor out there that the Bills are going to be playing San Francisco in Week 13. Okay, when they release the schedule, then I'll know. I don't need an unsubstantiated rumor, which could be bull crap. It's just
the NFL schedule leaks rumors is the worst rumor business on the planet. The other thing though is. So, of course, the Netflix news dropped that, Christmas Day, all football games are on Netflix. Okay. I mean, here's the way I handle this now. Now, I happen to be a Netflix subscriber, so fine. But if you don't go over a friend's house that day that has that service, you're just not going to watch that game. there's only a limit. There's there's 18 games. And if I miss 2 or 3 Jets games because there's some place that I can't watch them, so be it.
Well,
I'm not gonna pay for every service.
But the thing is, and I mean, you're technically in the New York area, correct?
Yeah. Well, I'm just outside of it, yes.
Right. So, like, okay, if the Bills are on Amazon or the Bills are on Netflix, by NFL rule, that game has to be broadcast locally. Right. So you'll see it. If it involves,
that won't happen for me. The local broadcast elude me, even though the Jets play in the state that I'm in.
Right. See, that's it. You're one of the fans that loses out because you're not in the New York broadcast area. Like, I'm in the Buffalo area, so I will see every Bills game, even if it's on Amazon.
Yeah, I'll see every Eagles game, even though I won't watch them, much to my dismay.
Yes, I'm sure you're waiting with bated breath to see every snap of the Eagles game.
Yes.
But that's the thing. It's like, I mean, you'll get to see, if it's the Bills, I'll get to see every Bills game. But if I'm playing fantasy football, which I don't do anymore, and I want to watch, Las Vegas versus the Chargers, I'm not going to see it. Right. Will I recover? Sure. All right, we'll start the show. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, May 15th, 2024.
I'm Russ Cohen, and I don't have 15 subscriptions to different services.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and neither do I. And this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. I got the hiccups. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll start with we'll talk about the 4 series, but we'll start with the news that came out just before Game 4 of the series between Colorado and Dallas, and that was Valeri Nichushkin. I don't know if you could say star forward, but key forward.
He was leading them in goals.
Yeah, so but he's okay. He's not on the level of Makar. He's not on the level of McKinnon. He's not on the level of Rantanen, but he's close.
Right.
He's a valuable player, and for the second playoff in a row, he's lost to the team for a non-injury reason. Last year there was a whole thing when he was in Seattle. That he was, he was basically unavailable to the team for the rest of the series, that they lost in 7 games to the Kraken. And now he goes into stage 3 of the NHLPA Players Assistance Program. It's been widely reported, Russ, that it's a failed drug test and that he's had an ongoing issue. So now 6 months, he's without pay, and he has to apply to be reinstated to the league. I don't remember the last time somebody was stage 3. I don't think
stage 3. I don't think we've ever heard stage 3.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've ever heard it. So yeah, hopefully he can get clean, but this will affect his career going forward. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I mean, remember, this guy, he was on the scrap heap.
Yep.
He was a first-round pick of the Dallas Stars. Started out pretty well, very ballyhooed.
If you go way back to that draft, ISS for a short time had him ranked number 1 or number 2.
Right.
And I went crazy. I don't know if you remember. I think I told you about it at that time, and I was just like, this is crazy. But, a tantalizing prospect for sure.
Yeah, I think he was drafted 11th overall, if memory serves, because I think I picked him in one of my Stratomatic hockey leagues. And big kid, 6'4", 210 pounds, not slow.
No.
Actually big strides, good speed, very talented. Played 3 seasons with Dallas, and then went back to the KHL. A lot of the talk there was he didn't get along with Lindy Ruff. Right.
Which is obvious. That speaks for itself.
Yes. Comes back after 2 years, comes back to the Stars. He fulfilled his contract, sort of like what happened with Radulov with Nashville. Scored no goals in 57 games. I think
which was amazing. We were all like, how's this guy have no goals?
And no penalty minutes.
Right.
Which was bizarre. So they didn't qualify him. Colorado took a flyer on him, it paid off. He got 13 goals his first year. Slowly, ever so slowly, was improving. Then gets the big contract, 8 years. I think he's making $6.5 million. And now 2 years in a row, this has happened. And now According to what Elliot Friedman said, he can't be terminated. The contract cannot be terminated because of this. But you wonder whether they'll find a way, or they'll find a way after he comes back to terminate him, or because obviously the team had some, a lot of the players had some issues with the guy, being one of their more valuable players, and then all of a sudden sort of stabbing them in the back with this irresponsible stuff.
Yeah, if I were a teammate, I wouldn't look at it that way, but I get it. This could cost them their season. Like it's very possible.
Yeah. So, going to that series though, now Dallas is up 3-1, going into Game 5 tonight in Dallas. They beat Colorado twice in Colorado. I watched a lot of the second half of this game, and I know that Georgiev let in a pretty bad one on the third goal, but I can't put the loss on him. I'm just saying, when I saw that goal, I'm like, Georgiev, my God. But they, in the wake of everything that happened with Nichushkin, they really didn't show up in that game. They were really, almost like they were like shell shocked.
Yeah, I think that's what happens when you get news like that in the room. It's hard to recover from that one game. I think we'll be okay after that. But yeah, it's hard. It's tough news.
And on top of that, Devin Taves was out with an illness.
Right.
So that's their second best defenseman, along with one of their more valuable forwards. Dallas is in an enviable position right now, but I had heard some stuff about like Rupe Hens might not play. There's some injuries.
There's a lot of guys right now that are really banged up, just gutting it out.
Yeah, so if that's the case, then they may have to insert guys like Maverick Bork, who have not been playing, and that could change the dynamic of the series there. Taves is coming back for Game 5, so it's not over with by a long shot. But
no, I heard forward Forrest Gump may come up, but we'll see.
Well, did they have hockey at Alabama?
Yeah, man, come on.
Okay. There you go.
Alabama Huntsville. They used to.
Yeah. Who was it? Who was the goaltender?
There were a couple. There actually were two.
Cam Talbot. There you go.
Talbot's the one. The Flyers had another goalie from there too. I forget his name.
Yeah, Cam. I remember Cam. Of course, I remember just as you're starting to say Cam Talbot.
Yeah.
Brilliant there, Mike. Okay, so sticking in the West. Edmonton evens the series last night with a 3-2 victory over the.
How is this possible, Mike? They stink.
They do, but the thing is, they almost blew it. Russ, they were up 2-0 in the third. Vancouver scores early in the third. Then Dakota Joshua, who, talk about a
failing of.
Well, I was going to say talk about a guy who's hitting it at the right time, just as he's going UFA, but also, somebody who I wrote about a bunch of times when he was the 5th round pick of the Leafs.
Yeah, we liked him. I watched him in the regionals, NCAAs, and I thought he looked good. And then all of a sudden, he couldn't find a role with the Leafs. Like, why? Well,
they never signed him. They didn't. Right. They let him go free agency, and then he went to I think St. Louis.
Yeah.
But I think he was a Dave Nonis draft pick. He was not signed by Kyle Dubas. He's a big kid and can skate, but did not have a lot of finish. And at that point, Dubas was loading up the organization with the smaller skill guys. Obviously, it's like one of those things where you need small skill guys. You also need big
guys like that.
Yeah. So he ends up in Vancouver. He's filled a role with Rick Tocchet, and now he's probably going to make some big money someplace else, because I don't know if Vancouver can sign him, but he's playing really well right now. I think
he's going to make big money, but he's going to make $4
million. He could make $4 million.
I'd say 3.
Yeah, depends on the term, but sure. And depends on the team, but this might be his one opportunity to make money, so he's going to sign wherever he can make the most. But he tied up the game with less than 2 minutes left to go in the third, and then with less than 40 seconds left to go, Evan Bouchard scores the game winner. Now, again, I picked Edmonton in the series because I didn't have any confidence in Svilovs. Svilovs has actually played pretty decent.
Svilovs has been good.
Yeah.
As good as he can be.
Right. So, but
Now Pickard, now he's the guy.
well, that's the question. Well, I mean, are they going to stick with Pickard because they won? And they don't have to do anything, Russ. I was.
No, they have to. They have to. I really do think Skinner plateaued there, and so you might as well see if this change of energy with Pickard is the key. Look, I mean, Vancouver was bottlenecking McDavid too. I mean, Zadorov has been a stud in this series. He really has. But so is Quinn Hughes. I mean, Quinn Hughes quietly is just behind a point a game, having like 9 assists. JT Miller, though, man, I said this on Sirius. If you'd have told me, I remember when people asked me about him when he was drafted, and I said, he's a good player. He's a good prospect. And then as a Ranger, he was like, he's a really nice player. And then even after that, he's a good player.
Yeah, with Tampa. With Tampa, he was a good player. And
now he's a top 15 player in the league.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
no,
it's good. He's so valuable. It's like, it's amazing what he has turned himself into. And it's not all just Rick Tocchet. Obviously, he's done a lot of the hard work too. So, I give him credit, but I still think Edmonton will edge out this series. I do. I think Vancouver's not going to get Demko back, and I think in the end it will end up costing them.
Yeah, I mean that's why I picked them. I still think they suck, but I think that I mean now
your reputation meant more than you just going straight ticket.
Don't get me wrong. I've got my blue and white pom poms waving for the Canucks. But the thing is, unless like I said, the scenario that plays out with Edmonton, Dallas and Colorado beating the crap out of each other, and then Edmonton sort of sliding on through, it still could play out that way if Dallas gets hurt, or if obviously Colorado without Nichushkin. And they're not going to get Landeskog back. I don't even think he's skating, so I don't think that's going to happen. So it could play out that way. By the way, I just saw the video of Corey Perry in a scrum at the end of the game, holding his stick out right in front of Brock Besser's face, basically like saying, "You come any closer, I'm going to cross-check you across the mouth."
I mean, Corey Perry, if he leaves the league, I'll be happy. I'm tired of Corey Perry.
Sorry. I mean, wow. I mean, you talk about a team. You've got a team with a couple classy guys like Connor McDavid and Draisaitl, and there's some other players too. But you also have a couple reprobates in Evander Kane and Corey Perry.
Charlatans.
Sure, no, troglodytes. There you go.
Troglodytes.
I can think of some other words, but I don't want to get an X rating on YouTube.
Well, actually, Johnny Red left yesterday because you cursed. But that's
dude. Well, yeah, it wasn't yesterday. It was Monday. But
Monday.
Yes. Okay. Swing to the east. We'll talk about the game last night. Actually a pretty boring game. 2-1 Boston. I mean, okay. I'm sure people in Boston were not bored because they won, and they won a tight game, 2-1. Jeremy Swayman playing like he did in the first round against Toronto was the difference.
He's wicked hot right now.
Yeah, he's a masshole. 28 saves. The biggest one being on Sam Reinhart late in, like with literally 2 or 3 seconds left in regulation. So they force a game 6 back in Boston, where, by the way, Boston has not had a good record in this playoff. They lost game 2 against Toronto. They lost game 5 against Toronto. They lost they went to overtime in game 7, and then they lost games 3 and 4. So they have not been good at home. But Boston has been better on the road. They've won both their games in this series in Florida. So, to say they're going back home, that's all fine and good, but they have to actually win there.
Right. And Pasternak's on the rise. Pasternak had a really good game.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like we were seeing a different player again. But they had the right game plan, man. I mean, they just carried out their game plan to perfection. It was just one of those things. You saw Maurice just lose it on the bench, and he did. He was just screaming. He actually, give Paul Maurice credit. He wanted to make sure he could really land-base these guys for the longest possible time, so he took a timeout that went into a TV timeout. So those guys had to sit there and take it for like.
And he did and he did in his post game. I think he went on for like about 10 minutes. I only watched a part of it, but he was basically saying, he had to rip into them, and he sort of sucked all the air out of the room type of thing.
He did that on purpose.
Yes, he definitely did that on purpose.
He knows the pressure is on the Panthers, even though it's still an uphill battle for the Bruins.
Right. So now the one thing, and I haven't seen any news of it being but there was some thought that Jim Montgomery was going to get fined by the NHL for his antics behind the bench, because he was doing the dive, he was doing this, and he was really he was flopping worse than some of the Knicks.
He doesn't care.
Oh no, but he will care if he gets fined $25,000. I mean, I would care about that. But no, I thought it was funny watching that. But
it was.
So we're getting to the point now, Russ, where there are more antics from hockey coaches than there is from baseball managers. It used to be Earl Weaver,
except for Aaron Boone and the these fans in the stands that keep.
Okay. Aaron Boone gets kicked out of the game and he didn't even open his mouth. There was a guy.
This is the second time. I
had
a hard time believing him the second time.
Wait, when did it happen again?
Last night.
Oh, did it? It was in Minnesota.
Listen, I don't know what's going on, but it's the second time this year.
I'll have to read. I didn't see that, but I mean, in New York, they had the video of it. He's standing there, and a guy in a blue shirt in the second row is mouthing off.
Well, again, he was like arguing with the umpire, and then he's like, "But look at this guy. He's the one saying it, not me."
Well,
and it's like, come on. I mean, Boone's been kicked out more games than any manager in baseball.
Unless he's like pulling his strings, unless it's a Geppetto and Pinocchio type of thing.
Be a friend of his,
Yeah. Now, I was hoping to have Jan because I wanted it on the show because I wanted to talk about the Rangers game against Carolina. Now, Rangers were up 1-0 on a shorthanded goal by Jacob Trouba.
Which everybody bitched and moaned about Trouba, and then he gets a shorty, which is crazy.
They were bitching and moaning because he was -7 in the playoffs.
I get
it. That's what happens when you play with Eric Gustafsson.
Right. Which I brought up on Sirius because they said, what changes would you make next year? I would get rid of Eric Gustafsson.
Yeah. I'm not a certain member of my family who should go unnamed, my brother, calls me or texts me and said, well, the Leafs wasted $4 million on John Klingberg when they could have signed Eric Gustafsson for $800,000. It says, you know what? John Klingberg was better because he got put on LTIR at the beginning of the season. He helped the team more than Eric Gustafsson would have, because Eric Gustafsson sucks. He's a terrible defenseman defensively. He's a power play specialist at best. Now, you could say the Leafs could have used that because Morgan Riley does not have a good shot from the point, but that was the whole reason they signed Klingberg. Eric Gustafsson went there because, Laviolette knew him.
Yeah, the magic of Eric Gustafsson always quickly wears off, and it's happened again. And it's just one of these things where, yes, during the year it was a big deal. In the playoffs, 3 points, no goals in 9 games.
This was a wasted year that they should have been playing Zach Jones. Instead, they played Eric Gustafsson. And now you could say they had to put their best defensive defenseman, which is Trouba, with him to cover up for him. And Trouba has made some mistakes, but Gustafsson is a terrible positional.
Oh, no, you don't want to pair with him, man.
No. But they've been putting Braden Schneider with Keandre Miller, and they've been putting Trouba with Gustafsson. At a certain point, they shouldn't play Gustafsson.
Yeah, I agree.
But they were up 1-0, and it was a terrible third period, Russ. It almost looked like they had expected Carolina to roll over and die. And Carolina,
some fans were like, "Oh, look, they're not even trying." It wasn't that. It's just and it wasn't like they were demotivated. They were just trying to play a tight game. They didn't really ever put the foot to the pedal to the metal. And Jordan Stahl had a great move, and that move sunk him. When he got that goal, that sunk him. And we got to admit, Jordan Stahl has had like a resurgence this year. He has.
Yeah, I mean, he was nominated for the Selke. He's never been a big offensive contributor, but he's not terrible. I mean, he's
no, but when he was drafted, we were thinking 25, 30 goals is possible for him besides the defense.
Yeah, and earlier in his career with Pittsburgh, he was a better offensive player, but he's a prototypical number 2 center. He's a two-way guy, good on faceoffs, can penalty kill. He's not exactly the fastest guy in the world, but but really, and then Carolina scored 2 goals in like rapid succession, and then basically the game was over with. So, the question is now, who's the pressure is on? I mean, I think it's all on the Rangers.
It's not, and I'll tell you what. First thing is, I do feel like they just need to get back to not fooling around with the lineup. So guess what? If Filipino says he could play, then play him. They need to try and close this out. But here's the thing. If you remember at the beginning of the series, I had said I didn't think the Rangers were going to sweep them, and it wouldn't shock me if Carolina stays in this. And I said those early losses would ensure that Carolina is going to have to come back to Madison Square Garden and win a Game 7. And that is very hard to do. And so that's what it's shaping up for, that it's very hard to do that. And Michael Cohen, everybody says they figured out Shesterkin. Yeah, for a game, you figure him out.
Yeah, Michael, we figured out that you were lying on the stand in New York, so there you go.
But I think they just need to get back to their game. It's possible they could lose another one because it's in Carolina, sure. Listen, it's not like Carolina's a bad team, and we've seen teams come back. But again, that will be a raucous crowd. The Rangers have a lot of things going for them in their favor when the game switches to MSG, if it does. So we'll see what happens with it, but I still think they're going to take the series.
Yeah, I think so because I predicted it so of course I'm not.
So of course it must be true.
It must be true. Okay. I'll just touch on this because it was so stark, and I saw like all these tweets that were going on yesterday. Canada was up 6-1 in the going into the third period against Austria, and Austria scored 5 goals in the third period, the 5th being Marco Rossi tying the game. I
like Marco Rossi. Who was in net for Canada?
It was either Bennington or Hofer. I'll look because I don't know for sure, but let me see. Now I have to just put this on. If somebody knows in the chat, let me know. But I'm looking it up right now.
Yes, if somebody's taking the time to watch all the World Championship games.
Yeah, they're watching me sweat here as I'm okay. Here, Game Center statistics. Okay, Bennington. Oh yeah, there you go. I'm sure he was happy. I'm sure he was looking for somebody to punch.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but then
stuff happens, right?
Right. Then Canada wins on a John Tavares overtime goal. So they're 2-0-1 in the tournament, and again, I don't really care that much. It's the World Championships. I mean, the only time I've really cared about the World Championships is when like star young players who haven't been drafted yet are playing there.
And they could have had this year with Celebrini and Fantilli, but they screwed them over.
Right. They definitely needed to play ex-favorite Andrew Mangiapane or
I see one good question already in the
Jack McBain. Okay. Which one?
Esmir.
The Keefe one?
Yes.
Okay. Esmir, where do you think Keefe will end up next season? I'm surprised more teams aren't inquiring about his services yet. Well, Pierre LeBrun reported that New Jersey had requested permission and the Leafs granted. There hasn't been much that came out after that, which would lead me to believe, and I'm just putting 2 and 2 together here, that he's got a 2-year extension and he's making $3 million unless it's a perfect fit. Why?
Right.
Why would he want to jump in? I mean,
I think he's going to do what Babcock did and sit out and collect the money at least for a year. Yeah. At least for a year. After that, who knows? I mean, he can go buy some real estate somewhere. But my feeling is, and I see this sort of happening, Brind'Amour doesn't have a contract. I think until Rod Brind'Amour says he's returning to Carolina, whether he does or not,
right?
a lot of these jobs are being put on hold. Yes, they're all getting interviewed. These guys are good, but like Berube, as an example, the Leafs are not going to hire Craig Berube if Brind'Amour is still not signed.
Right.
They're just not going to do it.
Well, Berube was in Toronto over the weekend. I think they said he was there for longer than a day, and you would have thought that, if he was the guy, they were going to jump on it and sign him. And now he's in Winnipeg, or he did
Winnipeg,
or he did a Zoom with Winnipeg.
Oh well, then that's not that serious. But again,
why?
You got to do it in person, a Zoom call.
Nah, not necessarily.
I mean, it's a good way to avoid going to Winnipeg. I don't think Berube's all that interested in Winnipeg if he's doing a Zoom call. That's just my feeling. And again, he's not going to sign until he knows the Leafs job is gone and some of the prime jobs. Listen, Winnipeg is not a prime plum job. So I think right now we're in this holding pattern where guys are going to get interviewed, but Brind'Amour has to make the first move here.
I think Randy's trying to push my buttons here.
I would Randy.
Yeah, no. NO, not a chance. He can, at his best, he's a good goaltender. At his worst, he's an albatross. And you need consistency in between the pipes. And, I mean, this goes,
Randy, would you re-sign Markstrom for another 8 years?
Well, and that's the funny thing that you were saying that, because in the end, right now, I think almost as important as, them not breaking up, but augmenting the core 4 or the core 5 is what to do in goal.
Right.
I'm very pro Joseph Wall, but Treliving said, what everybody's thinking. He says, for Joseph Wall, he's got to stay healthy to be the guy. They believe in his talent. They just don't know whether he can stay healthy or not. And he was basically saying, well, we'll work with him in the off season, in terms of a, some sort of different training I've heard that with Giancarlo Stanton. It's like, and other athletes in other sports. It's like, okay, maybe more stretching and this and that, well, whatever. But some players are just more injury prone than others.
Yeah. And as far as John Gibson going somewhere, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's staying there because in another year or two, I think Anaheim will be a good team. And based on that, why would he go anywhere? Right.
He could split time with Lucas Dostal and, make his money and not be under pressure. He's got a no move clause, so he's not, I think.
And again, they're going to get a great player in this draft. They've loaded up the last couple of drafts. They're not looking too bad.
Yeah, it's going to take some time, but I'm just looking here to see if he's got a no move or a no trade. And I really hate these ads on Cap Friendly now that you press on something and it covers the entire screen. So you have to click on the ad. Okay, Gibson has a modified no trade. It's a 10-team no trade list. So he's not exactly 100% ironclad safe.
Right.
But, at a certain point, if he asks out, then, maybe then something happens. And let me see if it's modified no trade throughout. So it doesn't go into a no move. But, in terms of the Leafs, I think, I would say, some people would say the possibility of them going after Markstrom. We saw last year when it came to Calgary. Calgary doesn't want to do Brad Treliving any favors.
I get it.
So, that would be doing them a favor to clear out the $6 million salary, especially if they're a rebuilding team and they want to give Dustin Wolf and Vladar be their goalies. But I don't know.
Here's another thing. I did see it up here in the chat room. It made me think. It said Gustafsson, maybe we'll get traded from Minnesota.
Yeah.
We talked about that, especially since Fleury re-signed with them. But also, I just think like a lot. I spoke about this on Sirius. I think Barry Trotz is going to keep Saros and trade Askarov. And I think this year is when he's going to do it because he needs that. He needs to get a boost from the club if he wants to try and, move on in the playoffs. And I think that's his method of doing it. So that's another guy who's going to be out there. But I don't think the Leafs would go after him.
No, because he's not proven.
No,
but right. But the thing is, and I heard Jamie McLennan talk about this. Because if you look at Askarov's stats, I mean, he was, let's see, 239 goals against, 44 games with Milwaukee, 30-13-1. Really, really nice record. Then he came up with the Preds, played a couple games, goals against under 2, but that was only 2 games. And didn't do well in the playoffs for Milwaukee. They must have. I think they must have been in that preliminary round series and lost. But he's 21 years old. They'd never given him really a chance to be the guy or even be the backup.
Right.
But McLennan said every time he'd seen Askarov, he had looked shaky. And now that's not a statement of whether, but
he hasn't been shaky all year. So I think that's faulty to kind of.
Yeah, no. He prefaced it by saying, obviously it had only been the times he had watched because he had great stats. But, it's a situation where you're going to a market that will destroy you, that will rip you to shreds if you're like Reimer or Samsonov and you're inconsistent, or Toskala, or, that is a market that's very tough on goaltenders. By the way, if you play well, they will love you to death, but you just got to perform. I mean, somebody like Shesterkin this year, the way he played in New York, I mean, they were a little critical, but the thing is that they had Quick to fall back on. Had he been in Toronto, they would have probably destroyed him because, they're really, there wasn't much room between them making and missing the playoffs. And Shesterkin, if he were the Leaf goaltender, his failings at that point might have cost him a playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, that's like saying, like, when Kirk McLean became a Ranger, oh, look, McLean looks shaky. Yeah, but he was really good in '94. He just didn't win. It's a snapshot. But at least he did preface it. I give him credit. By the way, did you see that ESPN's doing I guess not a 30 and 30, but some sort of doc on the Vancouver riots from '94?
Oh, I did not. We'll have to ask Greg Wyshynski when we have him on our Off the Post show on Sunday. I did, and they've advertised it a bunch of times, and I still have not watched it. And I don't know if you have the ESPN. I don't know if it's a 30 for 30, but it's on the Rangers signing Sakic to the offer sheet.
No, because, and I'll tell you why. This has nothing to do with the ESPN. I'm sure they did a great job. I'm friendly with Neil Smith. I spoke to him about it for more than an hour in our book, 100 Things Ranger Fans Should Do Before They Die. So we detailed it in great detail. I got it in great detail. So I know exactly what was happening. So based on that, that's the only reason I didn't. Will I watch the one on the Vancouver riots? You betcha.
Oh yeah. No, I'll have a bucket of popcorn, watching that one, because I didn't. Nothing. I took more. It's funny. It's like, you could categorize me as a hater, fine. But when it comes to hockey, I invest in the hockey version of Schadenfreude.
Sure, I get it.
Yeah, if there's, once my team is out, then I'm rooting I'm rooting against the team I hate the most. And
yeah, I get it. When you're in that fan mode, that's how you did it.
Yeah. So I mean, I just wanted
a question from Randy.
Okay. What will the Flyers do with Travis Konechny next season?
He'll start the season with them. They'll also try and give him a long-term deal. If they give him anything over 5, I think it's crazy, because I just feel like he's going to break down in the future. He's missed some games already. He's a 65-point guy at his peak. So he's a nice player. I think they could get a good return for him, but I don't think they'll trade him over the summer. As far as like Steve Cohen's chiming in here, and
I have to say, is Steve, because I banned Michael Cohen for something he said. I'm wondering if Steve Cohen is Michael Cohen on a different.
We'll just never know, but he is talking Flyers. I think Lawton's time with the Flyers is very shaky, and I think he knows that. If they get any kind of deal for him, if they got like a 2026 first round pick, trade him tomorrow. So I think his time there is tenuous. I don't know if he'll get through.
I'm sorry. It's like, I mean, and I know there have been some rumors of connecting Lawton to Buffalo because Lawton is sort of a bottom six type of tougher player that would be a good fit with the Sabres because they're bottom six.
And he likes wings.
Right. But the problem is that $3 million salary is onerous. He's not a $3 million player. He never will be. And I don't know if the Sabres would be interested in somebody making that kind of money playing a third or fourth line role. Now they did pay Gergensen's $2.5 million and Oposo $2.5 million last year, but they had a ton of cap space, so that was that in a way that helped them get to the cap floor. By the way, did you happen to see that the Oposo was interviewed by Tom Galletti of NHL.com, and when he was asked about the Sabres, he said that basically he knew by October or November that they weren't going to make the playoffs. Wow. So essentially said it was just not. We weren't the same team.
He felt it in the room already.
Felt it in the room already.
Year.
Right, and he said,
that's crazy considering the year they had the year before.
Right. Well, there must have been some sort of because remember they brought back the entire team.
Right, but that team was successful the year before.
Right. Well,
2 points right out of the playoffs.
See,
happened.
But what happened is, and I was front and center with it because I was covering the team for the Hockey News. Don Granato was stressing defense because they gave up 300 goals against. And the analogy I keep using with the Sabres was that team and that group of players cannot walk and chew gum at the same time.
If you give up 300 and score 301, you're okay.
Right, but they only scored 296 and they missed 1 point out of the playoffs. And this year they scored 50 goals less and they gave up about 50 goals less and they missed the playoffs by 8 points. So, they
were better off before they tried to play defense.
Yeah, but it was more a thing of, and remember
Tage Thompson not having the same kind of year.
Tage Thompson got hurt. Cousins didn't score as much. Skinner didn't score as much. The only guy who really improved from the previous year was Peterka.
Yeah.
Jack Quinn was
a nice shot in the arm for them.
Yeah. So the only other thing before we end the show, interesting rumor from an X column today of the Vegas situation, because it came out that Vegas and Marchessault, they're mutually interested in getting a deal done. But if you look at Vegas's cap situation right now, they're in
someone to be injured.
Yeah, well, no, that's the problem. It's like nobody's in, because they traded for Hertl and Hertl was healthy. Right. They traded for Hanifin and they extended Hanifin. Now they're probably going to lose Chandler Stevenson because Hertl pretty much replaces Chandler Stevenson.
Right, and Stevenson maxed out a year ago in his career, I feel.
Well, right, but he's going to expect money based on what he did with Vegas, and maybe he's peaked. And Hertl can play center. I don't know if he's a center, but he can play center. And
when does the former Sabre goalie money drop off?
He's on LTIR. He's got another year after this year.
Another year, okay.
Yeah, but the talk is that they may entertain trading Shea Theodore.
They won't.
Well, Theodore's only got.
Else will happen, Mike. It always does.
Okay.
What they're going to do? They're going to keep Marchessault on the line and say, "Listen, we just let the season start. Our capologist has to figure this one out." It's just, come on. We've seen this script before. One last thing too, Mike.
Ouch, Mark Stone. Ow. Sorry.
My brother let me know this because, he went to college in Buffalo and he said the Anchor Bar is now in Chicago where he is.
Good, keep it there because it sucks.
Well, they're spreading their tentacles, Mike. And
I mean, hey, we know that Chicago
needs a second place.
We know. Don't say that name again. We know that Chicago is the murder capital of the world. So how appropriate that Anchor Bar is there now. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.